Have you ever left accidental crumbs or food remains overnight, only to wake up in the morning with an ant infestation in your kitchen? Not the best thing to wake up to. I've definitely been there, so I've decided to determine how efficiently ants will respond when locating food particles of varying weight. The feeding patterns of the African big-headed ant have been so disruptive it is now recognised as an invasive species and a major pest in Australia. It uproots native vegetation and wildlife ecosystems, including those that are endangered. By observing their feeding patterns, we gain insight into how we can improve our pest control methodologies. Also, we can gain knowledge on the adaptive evolution of this species and its successful infiltration of our urban environments. Currently, there is a lot known of ant foraging behaviour in the scientific community. Ants typically scavenge for food from a central colony, building a network of routes radiating out to nearby sources of nourishment. These networks start from the nest and splits into thinner branches. Current studies have determined that ants prefer to minimize distance of travel when foraging for food, as shorter routes reduce both energy and time costs of delivering food resources back to the colony. Also, ants are able to implement the use of trail pheromones to guide workers to food sources. They also draw from their memories to find familiar locations of stable resources. What research hasn't yet determined is how efficiently ants will respond when locating food items of varying weight. More specifically, does the number of worker ants linearly scale with food size, and what are the implications of this for pest management? For this experiment, 4 ant colonies were observed. 4 equidistant locations were set for each ant colony to place the varying food particle sizes. These were 1 gram, 3 grams, 5 grams, and 7 grams. For each 5-minute observation round, a food particle of the varying weights was placed at each equidistant mark. The experiment was repeated. The results were compared with other ant colonies to look for any significant interactions. This was done by a 2-factorial ANOVA test. The results identified a significant relationship between the number of worker ants and food particle size. There was no significant interaction between the number of worker ants and with the location. There was also no significant relationship between the number of worker ants and the food particle size with the location. Essentially, the results between the different ant colonies were the same, meaning the greater the food size, the greater number of worker ants came to forage from the ant nest, as you can see from this linear regression plot. This study gives insight into how and why the African big-headed ant has evolved. In terms of evolutionary principles, the African big-headed ant demonstrates their incredible plasticity in their phenotypes. Belonging to the ant or Formicidae family, their disproportionately large heads are a unique feature. Just giant muscles surrounding their mandibles, they use their heads to attack other ants and cut up prey. Given this study demonstrates just how efficient the African big-headed ant's foraging techniques are, we could perhaps argue that the reason why the ant has been so successful in becoming a major pest and dominating other ants is because of their plastic nature in developing different phenotypes that are more suitable to their environments. In this way, their large heads are a selected trait to increase their fitness. So what are the implications for pest management and our native vegetation? We now know that the more food you leave out, the greater number of ants it will attract to your home or whatever your environment is. Therefore, this study allows for the development of a preventative approach to the invasion of African big-headed ants in different environments to ensure our native flora and fauna are protected. To ensure an infestation doesn't occur, you should, regardless of if you're outdoors or at home, minimize food and liquid remnants. Ideally, nothing should be left out in the open, as this experiment demonstrates that even a tiny crumb is enough to attract ants. Do not litter food particles in public spaces. Put your rubbish in the bin, especially in areas where native vegetation can be found, such as national parks. If you're at home, sweep up food crumbs that are under your kitchen appliances. These ants have been known to destroy building infrastructures. Store your food in airtight containers and at home, safely in cupboards or refrigerators. If you have a pet at home, clear up your pet's leftovers immediately to minimize the risk of ant infestations. Block off any entry points for ants by sealing all cracks and crevices around your doors and window frames with silicone or acrylic where necessary. Make sure all rubbish bins, including outdoors, have tightly sealed lids and aren't overfilled so as not to escalate attraction of a large population of ants.